Julie here from Copy What I Use for Teenage Anxiety, and in today's video I'm going to cover some techniques and tips that I've picked up over the years for helping with children's anxiety with revision. Because my eldest daughter, while she loves revision and she sort of always has got on with it, I've helped her here and there. My younger one is a different story altogether, particularly if she's bored with the subject, she just switches off. She is very clever, but it's a case of motivating her and keeping her switched on to do revision. Okay, so on this video, I'm actually going to share 3 tips that we found helpful in helping with child anxiety around revision time. Okay, so with tip number 1 is post-it notes. Now, I know a lot of you are probably thinking, oh, hang on now, we already use post-it notes. But with the technique we use, we actually tend to colour code them and we attach then the various colours to various items in a room, for example, in the kitchen. Like in our kitchen, if I just show you a quick example, here's what I made earlier. Don't know if you can see that. Okay, basically, that's one that my eldest daughter did. She actually had it colour coded, and as I say, the one colour which was blue in this instant was on the one fridge. She had yellow on another fridge. Then there were pink ones on a cupboard. She had green ones on another item. And what that helped to do was not just for her to recap every time she went past them, but it also cleverly made her think of a particular topic to the colour and to the item it was attached to. For example, let's just say that she was covering ethics, say in RE. She would know that the green sticky note on a certain fridge, anything to do with that item and that colour would be relating to ethics. Now, for example, if she's doing another branch of RE, she might have something yellow and that might be attached to a cupboard. So every time she go to that cupboard and to that colour, again, it would associate it then within that topic in RE. So even within topics, you can actually, because in different subjects there's always various topics in most of them, isn't there? And then you can just attach a colour that represents a topic, but then you can also relate that topic to the item it's on. So it's all a recap process of what you're actually trying to remember, and it helps. Now, this particular technique is very useful for other techniques I'm going to share in future videos, because one thing I'm really passionate about is the fact the way education is still taught in schools, i.e. the old school method, the drill method, that you take it in or you don't. There are much, much, much easier revision techniques I've come across, and they're a whole lot stressful on teenagers than the one they use in schools. But again, I'm going to do that in future videos, but this has sort of covered a little bit of it in that sometimes it can be associating items, rooms, journeys, linking. These type of methods have been used since the Greek and Roman times to retain lots of information, and not just retain it in the short-term memory, but it retains into the long-term memory as well, meaning that once you learn it, it's there and you just recap every so often to make sure it stays there. Again, I'll be sharing these type of techniques in future videos because it's something I feel very, very strongly about in simplifying the process for people. Anyway, back to the post-it notes. So that's basically it about post-it notes. You actually associate a colour to a topic and then attach it to a certain item. So that item, the colour and the post-it note relates to a specific area they're trying to revise. And then just recap every time you go. Like, for example, my one daughter, every time she went in the fridge, she'd actually have a little look at it and test herself then. Okay, revision tip number 2 then to reduce anxiety, and one again we found really good, was using index cards, or some call it flashcards. Everybody's got a different word for it. But basically they're small little cardboard cards. You've probably seen them with a few little lines on them. And what we do is write the question that we're trying to, or a phrase we're trying to remember on the one side, or a definition, I beg your pardon, a definition on the one side, and then you'll actually have a phrase, then that definition is the meaning of that definition on the other side, or the answer of a question, whichever you're using. So to recap, you put the question or a definition on one side in one colour, and then an answer or an explanation for the definition on the other side. Now again, a lot of you might be using that technique because it is a very popular technique, but what I do to make it different, because they're so small and they can transport anywhere, we actually jig it up a bit by taking it to a Starbucks or a Costa. Obviously there are other coffee outlets out there, but they're 2 of our favourites and they're near to us. So I'd either take them for a coffee to have a total change of scenery, and then I would test them in there. And you'd be surprised with a coffee and a different environment, again, how much more interesting it makes and how much easier they take the information in. Or sometimes if they're particularly stressed with the revision, I would even take them in the car to the coast and I test them there. Now, those of you who follow my channel on teenage anxiety, you know I'm very much an advocate for reducing teenage stress by taking them for a ride in the car. We are lucky we live by the coast. I've got lots of nice places I can travel to. We sit by the beach, and in this instance with revision then, I take out the revision cards and I test them by the beach. And you'd be amazed, even my youngest daughter, who's a very reluctant learner and reviser, is surprising how quick they take the information in, because they're actually interested and they're in a different environment, and it helps enormously. Okay, and finally on to revision tip number 3. This again touches on future videos that I'm going to actually cover as well. In that, again, it dates back from Greek times and it's actually named after the goddess for memory. Because the Greeks and Romans were very much people for trying to impress people with their memory techniques of how they could take in lots of information. And one of the methods they used was mnemonics. Now, mnemonic isn't to be confused with acronyms, and I say that likely because for many years I was calling this technique acronyms, and there is a difference which I'll explain in a minute between the two. But basically, mnemonics is something you've probably been using from young and you haven't perhaps realised it. I first realised how much I'd been using it when my younger daughter came home impressed that she knew how to spell because. So it is quite a tricky word to use, but to try and remember because. But the way that she was taught to do was by mnemonics, where she actually thought of a rhyme, or they gave her a rhyme in this instance, and it was big elephants can't always use small entrances. Now what they do is memorise the rhyme, and then if you take the first letter from each one, big B, elephant E, can't C, A always, use U, small S, entrances E. And can you see how much easier it is for a child to remember that rhyme than trying to remember how to spell because? But in the process, they actually learn how to spell because. And mine have never forgotten that way of learning how to spell because. Now, take this on a notch then. I mean, in particular, my younger daughter, like I explained, if she liked a subject, didn't have to help her at all. But if it was like science, where there's lots of information and boring facts to take in, she just switches off. And again, she is clever. She did end up with a good grade in the end, but only because I found easier methods like this to help her with revision. Okay, so this one with mnemonics, what I did was, to give you an example, in biology, you have to learn the class list, which is what scientists used so that everybody is actually referring to the same species and genre of an item. Okay, so let me just get my list in front of me because it's a few months since I studied this. So basically, the class list is this: kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Okay, now that's quite a mouthful, especially when you've got a daughter there, or a son for that matter, who doesn't like revision. So the quick rhyme that we came across for this one, and it's used quite a lot I think in biology, is King Philip came over for good soup. Now again, I'm not saying you've got to learn the list. Obviously, you've got to know the king relates to kingdom. You've got to know the good relates to genus. So you've got to know the genus, the species, the kingdom bits. But it's a whole lot easier to learn when you put it to a rhyme and you can remember the first letter that's going to actually represent the word. So to go over it again, you've got king, which would be for kingdom. Philip is phylum. Came is class. Over is order. For is family. Good is genus. And soup is species. So okay, that's the third method we use. And again, like I said, in future videos, I am going to be sharing other Greek and Roman methods of remembering lots of lists of information and storing it by using a journey, by using rooms, by using items, by using linking methods. And it makes it a whole lot easier. For example, I learned the first 10 numbers of pi, and by the way, I'm not very good at maths at all, that's my weakest subject. I learned it literally under 5 minutes by learning one of these techniques, and I can hand on heart say, I can still tell you today, 10 years later, the first 10 numbers after the point for the number, the maths number. In fact, I might even tell you what it is now, and then you can actually discover how I learnt it. The number is 1415926535. 10 years later, and that's the first 10 numbers of pi. And that's still remembering it through a more visual technique I was shown how to retain information and boring numbers. Okay, so I'll share that in a future video with you, but for now, that's my 3 revision techniques that actually reduce anxiety. So just to recap, it's using colour post-it notes for different topics and attaching them to a different item. Number 2 is to do revision cards or flashcards, whichever you refer to them as, and actually shake it up a bit and take them for a coffee or whatever they might enjoy doing, or take them to the beach or for a walk, or whatever method you want to use away from the home, because that actually helps as well. And number 3 is using an old technique used by the Romans and the Greeks, which is mnemonics, which is again is actually learning difficult information in the form of a rhyme. Okay, so that's it for my video today on how to reduce revision stress for teenagers and revision anxiety. If it's been useful, please pop a comment in the bottom so I know that what I'm sharing is useful. And also, I've put links at the bottom to my blog where I actually cover more revision techniques like this in the form of a blog, including what I've discussed today. And I've also put a link on there for a Copy What I Use for Revision group that I'm starting, so that lots of us parents can get together and share ideas and tips on a group to make the anxiety around revision time less and more manageable for our teenagers. Alright, so that's it for today, but again, please, if you have liked it, pop a like, and please, if you want to make sure you don't miss any of my future videos, also press on the bell and that'll give you a notification when I make my next video. Okay, that's it for today. Bye for now.